Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're able to tune into this episode of In Conversation with. I'm Dave Sleet. I'm co-founder of A&A Psychological Accreditation. And in this episode, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Siobhan, APA's CEO. Siobhan, thank you for joining us.
You're always very welcome. It's my role to be here and represent the company, and I enjoy meeting new people. And Kim, you're just about to introduce Kim. It's a pleasure to have you here, Kim. Thank you for coming.
And Kim Page, who we've spoken before in Conversation with episode earlier last year, and I'm delighted to welcome you back for a bit more of a deep dive around technology, the way the therapy world engages with technology, and really to pick up on some of the stuff that's happening right at this moment in time and give people a bit more awareness. But for those people that haven't seen the previous episode, why don't you give people a chance to get to know you a little bit and what it is that you do?
Oh, thank you, Dave. And sure. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's lovely to be here. So my name is Kim Page. I am the founder of ISOSCONNECT, a client management, practice management software that's available for you on your screens right now to help you look after clients. I have been in digital health for too many years. I've cut my teeth on the growth of telehealth and telecare and began in social care very, very many years ago. My passion for the caring industry, and for me, when I talk about that, although I represent a technology company, I am building a software company. I am totally human-centric. All of the passion and insight and knowledge and experience from me and my team that I recruit around me is all about this essence of enabling two people or more to be together and for there to be better health and care outcomes for those individuals, for those giving as well as for those receiving. Tech does a really great job of that, but not on its own. And so after having very many years, had the opportunity to work alongside allied health professionals as well as conventional district nurses, community nurses, right up to consultant level, I was always struck by the fact that the people on the very front line that had to use technology all day, every day, were generally the last on the list considered when that tech was built. It's generally clunky and no fun to use, and just too much of a pain and causes too much disruption in that conversation. Those two humans should be enabled, right? The technology should be invisible as the battery in your phone. You shouldn't really know what it is. You should just be able to do what you're doing. So I had this experience over a really long period of time, and 4 years ago had the opportunity to walk my walk and put everything I care about into practice. So for about the last 6 or 7 months, we've really started to gain some momentum, and we're bringing ISOSCONNECT out, not for clinics, but for the individual therapist and counsellor, and helping them stay safe in these times that have taken us online completely, as we are right now. And
it's great that we're able to kind of tap into that know-how, because I think the vast majority of therapeutic professionals don't have an awareness of how this arena operates, what the risk factors are. But they shouldn't have to think about it either, should they?
No, completely not. So if you the analogies we always use over the last decade, two big digital things have happened in pretty much all of our lives. The first one is booking our holiday. Now we can travel again. So when you go online to book your holiday, you are sharing your most precious pieces of information. You're sharing your identity, your passport, your bank account. You have no clue. I would challenge anyone listening, I don't really know I would challenge anyone listening, where does each of those pieces of information, those pieces of data go? You don't know. There's no interruption. It is just a straightforward service, because the regulation, the rules are abided by, the companies are specialists, they know what they're doing, and you can therefore log on and spend, you know, what for most is a significant amount of money and just enjoy your holiday. And the other is digital banking. We are all au fait with digital banking. And whilst primary care and secondary care are getting there with all of this being connected and second nature, the standards that are so critical to healthcare conversations now need to be in the more public domain, the individual domain. Standards shouldn't have to drop. That's what we're aiming at, the standards of digital banking, those standards of safety and quality. That's what has to be made available. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And what APA is looking to do in these conversations is raise awareness. We're not telling professionals where to go, what platforms, what systems to use. This is about raising the awareness of how these things work, so that they can make better and more informed choices about how they set up and how they integrate technology into their day-to-day work. And I think, Von, you and I have had conversations about technology and APA's use and all of this since the very kind of, you know, I think probably about the second or third conversation about the formation of APA. And as a therapeutic professional, when the world went into online, and it was really kind of forced onto us without any kind of warning, really, it was a case of, you've got no choice, you've got to go online. What was your experience kind of that transition, kind of technology wise?
Well, I have to admit, Kim, I'm the least technical person. So this is the area of my life that, and David knows me very well, which is partly why he's asking the question, because he knows I avoid everything to do with technology with my clients. But unfortunately, during COVID, that is what we had to do. So even I don't put any notes online. Everything for me is old, what I call old school manual, easily destroyed by fire, which is what I do at the end of it all. So it's not my fun thing, and I'll never admit that. It genuinely isn't. So for me, the transition was reasonably comfortable, because what I was using and what I still use is Zoom, and that makes it works with my brain, but I do not know enough about it, and I'm honest about that. So for me, hearing what you've got to say is actually really important, because this is just not give me somebody's mind over technology any day of the week.
We'll do a swap.
No, it's all right.
This is, you know, you being able to serve your needs, it is the challenge. But I think let me come back to something David said, right? This isn't, I may have a lot of references to share from my own personal experience, but I am going to say out loud for myself, use something for the reasons that we're now going to go into, right? You take the step and use something, and it's really, really important. And I hope in this conversation I get to make the case for at least to spark some curiosity and to inspire some intention to perhaps go and make some different decisions, given the fact the world has moved. Mm. And I completely respect, you know, for some professionals it was unwelcome. I mean, aside the pandemic scenario, but continuity of care wins. We have to do that. And the willingness that was shown by an army of amazing professional people to just grapple with all of this stuff and sort it out for the sake of clients was amazing, absolutely amazing. But as we said, it's not going away. So what do we look for to ensure that, you know, what does our future look like? What are these things that we should be looking out for? I think one of the first things for me is free. Free.
It's not really free, is it?
Well, so there's because I'm a people person. For me, people and cultural values are really important. So I don't think therapists should work for free. I don't think specialist services should be for free. And I think if you are going to use a free service, that very moment you've compromised. Because it, as you said, Dave, nothing is for free. Mm. And I will call out Zoom's tactics. It was not personal towards this community, because this community is not their sweet spot of clients. So they had no need to serve the therapist or counselling community.
Or consideration of the factors involved in this community.
Just no need to take it into account at all. But obviously here, closer to home, a lot of people have been affected. So I'm just gonna leave that free question mark, right? There is instantly a trade-off the minute you're using something for free. Mm-hmm. What are those trade-offs? They are, you probably have very little control if it's free. Not as much control as you'd need, or if you thought about it, that you'd want. So pricing, good example, considering what we've just been talking about. A limitation was placed on businesses within, and people in need, right? No consideration for the fact that these are caring conversations. So limitation, pricing changes, let alone things like the data bit, right? The subject access request. So free question mark. The next thing I would say is, if you look at all the services that you're using, please use one that's UK based. Mostly because Zoom does fall into this category, but so does some other, all sorts of software. If they are not UK based, then their primary regulation, legal and regulatory requirements are not UK based. So what information they would share with you, even if you asked for it, all starts to become a little bit subjective. And to give you an example, Zoom is a US based company. Their regulation is something called the Patriot Act. If you are not a US citizen, you have very different rights to your own information, even though you have an account with them. Very different rights. So they may agree to abide by, the ICO, and yes, they are all appropriately registered and all of those things. But think about it. If you were given a subject access request, or a client came to you and for some reason or another they needed their history of their online consultations, where would you get that from? And I doubt very much a multi-billion-dollar corporation is going to stand still and come and serve you with that information. That takes me to another step: customer service. You work on your own, at home, mostly. You don't have an army of people around you, or often able to help. And as we found out this evening, stuff can go awry. Work with an organization that has accessible customer service with you. All sorts of things can go wrong with you and your client. Have a human that you can talk to, because it doesn't cost you anymore. It keeps you safer. And obviously, you can see how we're taking steps to maintain this quality with your client. So to start with, just talking about privacy and security, one more thing I'd add on that. We'll go on to efficiency, because there are some benefits. This is all about protection, but there are some benefits. The other bit about protection is when you do use software like I'm picking on Zoom. I don't mean to. They've come up in conversation, but you'll get the analogy. When you use Zoom, your client is required to download and maintain that software in order to be able to talk to you. Zoom's very happy it gets 2 customers for the price of 1.
Yeah.
There is a record for that client, and they are vulnerable for that record. Good software for a therapeutic conversation. There are others as well as ours. They will not require your client to download or maintain any software.
Yeah.
So that's all the privacy bit.
Okay. So I want to pick up first off on that point of it's free. Okay. We're used to this idea it's free at point of use, right? We've had it for the last 70 years with the NHS, and obviously that kind of has ingrained this idea of free at point of use. Okay. The technology systems that went into overdrive 2 years ago with free at point of use, and they were clear about the terminology that it's free at point of use, was because it was being paid for in some other way. It wasn't totally free. As the customer taking that service, that company was still making a hell of a lot of money, because just because you weren't paying for it meant it wasn't free. And that's worth remembering.
Marketing.
Okay. So where did those companies get their money from? And that's database sharing, isn't it?
It does happen that way. I mean, I'm think about, even there is one part of Zoom's terms and conditions which is a little subjective. So we talk about generally in conversation right now, for instance, you know, we would be concerned with our video connection and the fact that we were present. The bit of data that says you and I are connected and we were present. The audio from the conversation is entirely separate data.
That's why when you get your Zoom recording at the end of those calls, you get 2 files.
Indeed, entirely separate. Then start thinking about the chat function. If you're going to be sharing resources on screen, I mean, think screen sharing, and then sharing links. You know, having you have a piece of software that, you know, wonderfully opens up the world, but you are enabling
the world
a
can come in.
multi-billion-dollar corporation to get a whole lot bigger. This is the bit I get really passionate about. We as a community should be serving ourselves. I would take all of those users as cheaply as I possibly could, but nevertheless my staff need paying. But we'll build exactly what you need. No organization is ever going to learn what you need as services grow. And let me tell you that we're nowhere near, we are on such a roller coaster with the development of this technology. The metaverse within the next 5 years would place us having this conversation now in a completely different environment. It's coming, it's not going to stop. We're going to be bringing on things like transcribing. You won't be writing the next generation of therapists will not be writing their notes. They'll be transcribed automatically on screen. It's all coming, but there are the technology service providers out there are never going to learn what is specifically needed unless we come together and you know get this movement underway.
And this is why Siobhan and I wanted to make sure that the technology conversation was happening as early as possible in that process. The more therapeutic professionals are aware of how these systems and platforms benefit off of their lack of knowledge around the therapeutic arena, the more the therapeutic arena can say, well, hold on a minute. We've got to protect our clients. As it stands at the moment, here's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong. A platform that has data sharing of end-to-end encrypted service basically means that that company encrypts what goes on between IP address and IP address. right?
Mhm.
But they have access to your microphone, your camera, and your contacts.
Mhm. It has to be encrypted twice over, in flight and at rest.
Right? However, that's what that company does. That does not protect about interception of that information, number one. And what happens with that, if whose responsibility is it once that information has been intercepted? Okay, that's something to bear in mind, because we are seeing almost on a daily basis major companies who use these free at point of use services are the targets of interception, number one. But also the information that isn't that end-to-end encrypted, so that IP address, that microphone access, that camera access, that content access, that is shareable. So an insurance company, for example.
Oh, third parties. Don't you just love the term third parties?
Third parties, yeah. Vultures, snipers, third parties.
Data is king.
Right.
Yep.
So these third party companies who are paying for your contact details and access to your contacts, that's the equivalent of you taking your contact list of all of your clients and selling it to somebody that your clients don't know that that's even happening, simply because they've got a connection to you.
Yeah, indeed. You don't have any control over those big relationships. I mean, I haven't managed to scrutinize it completely, but it's been in the press, I understand it this week, the detail around what happened even with Google's health initiative in London, which was exactly the same. The small print, the terms and conditions, the third parties, shared in good faith, and possibly, and again, I'm not completely familiar with the detail, but possibly very similar to what happened with BetterHelp as well.
Yeah,
just not having any control at all.
Yeah, and that's where you've got, what does that information look like to the recipient of that purchased information? A series of IP addresses that are clients of that platform. So the professionals that have signed up, they've got an account. A series of IP addresses that are linked to that account holder.
Yeah.
And then the frequency of contact.
Yeah, magnified. Yeah.
Okay. So if you are a therapeutic professional who has 25 clients, that means by agreeing to that platform, you are agreeing to sharing the IP addresses of your 25 clients and the frequency at which those clients are connecting with you. Now, if I was an insurance company getting that data, I don't think it's going to take me that long to work out that there is an appointment regularity that I can tap into.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any evidence of it put to use, but obviously we know that it does. I mean, you personally, from my own commercial background, I've never been, thank goodness, ethically never been involved in anything like that. And even the large organization that I worked with that could have done it, didn't.
And that,
yeah,
that's also more luck than protection, isn't it?
Because terms and conditions are generic for that purpose. The digital world runs on IP addresses and data packets, instance. The more it knows about an individual. I mean, can you even imagine adding in your smart speaker, your voice, your home voice assistant to this conversation? I speak often to people who don't realize that they can log on and access all of their home recordings from some of those smart speakers now, because it's just recording all of the time. Some televisions do as well.
And this is, you know, we've already seen reports coming out from around the world, certainly from the US, Canada, Australia, where it's not just kind of the global security threats that people are having their information taken from.
No, it's not. I think it's pretty common now, even for someone to have experienced hacking. With our term, it means something slightly different, but to describe someone's nabbed your identity, you know, Google. That's also another big conversation in our world. Well, I am digital. I store everything on Google. Now that's great, but that's all behind one password. And you move on to policies and, you know, how you treat those things. But yeah, but as you said when we began, how do you can't expect everyone to become an expert in this scenario, right? There is a job of work to be done. And I know how many hours it takes for a qualified therapist counsellor to do their job. They don't really, no one wants to go to tech school, as it were. But some of this, we do have to become much more au fait with. And we need to demand the transparency. And we need to demand the choice of what we do with our own data.
Siobhan, the protection that APA puts in place for that relationship between the professional and the client, APA's working extremely smart, if I might be so bold to state, that we're not waiting for the crisis, are we?
No, and you know, I also take into account, as somebody that works with clients, I work with them across the world, and I'm just picking up things that obviously I did not know. This is not my forte. You're absolutely right. Most therapists don't come into being a therapist to be tech wizards. They come in to be, if you like, dare I say it, mind wizards rather than tech wizards. You know, but when I think about some of the international clients that I work with, and I think about even China and how China blocks Zoom, it causes major problems. There's, you know, I learned these 3 letters. What they mean is another matter to my head, but I learned about VPNs, and that's what I mean. I only learned about the 3 letters. I have no actual idea what they actually mean, but I'm aware that places like China, they block Zoom, they block other, and it causes real disruption within appointments. And my hardest thing as a therapist, I'm extremely passionate about what I do and how I work with the clients that I work with. For me, it is so important to hear every single word that person is saying. And I can truthfully say, I 1,000,000,000% prefer having somebody in front of me than ever on technology in any way, shape or form, because it can be the most pivotal emotional moment for somebody, and the system collapses in that moment. Yeah. And there is nothing worse for me as a therapist on behalf of that client to almost go back and try and pick up the emotion before the screen collapses, the system's collapsed, or, you know, it freezes in the middle of a moment that is really profound. So I personally, thank God, truthfully, that, and I'm not religious, I'm just Irish cultural language in there. I thank God for everything, every day, every minute. I'm really glad that the majority of my work is done face-to-face. You know, the least amount of my work is done online, simply because it's the best way And I can only speak from my own experience, and I know people have challenged me on this, but I see everybody's got their own opinions and it's their choice. But when you're on screen, you don't get to see the whole body. So whereas a psychosomatic impact of anxiety can play out by foot tapping, right now I can't see anybody, anybody past here. Yeah, I can't see any of that.
You made me sit up, actually, because I tell everyone all the time that you should always be visible on screen down to your elbows, at least, always. And I'm breaking my own rule, actually. You made me do that, but I do say that all the time. Yes,
and this is where things like the holographic presentations, everything else that the technology is steaming towards, all starts to play out, and the avatar and the
do you know what we've got? We've got. I think the evolution, the big change here, right, has come from clients, not from anywhere else, really. Because the reason we went online and used it was for continuity of care, and a lot of the evolution that is coming now is to serve clients. That's the push that's really, you know, wrangling at every area. And you've got, as so many studies have shown, and I have seen this for years in telehealth, one of the positive things from a client's point of view is they, in general, without, obviously there are some specific circumstances, but in general, they can be more open. Whether it's the cumulative effect of being in their own home, and feeling in a safe space and not having sat in a waiting room and not being in, you know, or the journey they don't do, but to be slightly more open. The physical cue is exactly right. And that is one of the things that I was looking at one yesterday. One company is trialing what they call a campfire, if you've seen it. So you take up your avatar and you literally go and take your seat at a campfire. And that's probably one of the first times where, technology fascinates me, but one of the first times where, from a human point of view, I've kind of gone, I might enjoy that. I actually
and it's starting to give that whole body experience, and representation, and you know, as you say, the speed at which these changes and evolutions are coming are off the chart. We haven't seen development at this pace in any other area. I can't pin this speed of evolution in any other area before.
It is terrifying. I think in to your point, Siobhan, about the annoying bits that get in the way. Obviously the country is busy upgrading to 5G, and for a lot of people, we will very soon be in a place where that mobile network will be faster, steadier, and more capable than any landline connection that we have. And so much of that infrastructure is on the way. I'm going to go back. When was the last time you had a telephone conversation on a landline?
Well, I actually I don't even use my landline anymore, you know, but the one thing I do is I make a point, it's one of my boundaries when I'm not online. Well, it applies when I'm online as well, but when I'm actually in person, I request and talk through the boundary of keeping phones off, because I know the phone listens. I know I have said something out loud. I've said it to David in the past. I might have said, you know, I want to go to Aruba. And what pops up on my phone? Adverts on Facebook in relation to Aruba. So I'm really, really conscious of the fact that the phones actually listen.
Have you heard the Google pregnancy story about that?
No.
So when Google first started rolling out the technology, this is quite a while ago, it was very new. But the story, it's a factual story, an experiential story that was shared. A dad learned that his very young daughter was pregnant before she knew, because
Wow.
he glued together so basically the daughter's Google search history was becoming so tailored as she'd searched her own symptoms, that every time you went on the computer, he started to be served adverts for pushchairs and nappies. And he then, I mean, it was quite a positive experience, you know. Yeah. I guess we can all imagine sometimes where it might not be, but it was. But nevertheless, yes, that kind of targeted, even without the listening, that kind of targeted technology is capable of doing something like that.
Sorry, I smiled because I have a bit of a dark mind, and bear in mind I deal with lots of trauma and difficult situations. My first thought was, God, what a way to catch serial killers if they were all researching how to do this, how to do that, how to do the other. And it was all picked up. Sorry, my dark mind popped in there, and I just thought, let's go away from pregnancy, let's go to murder.
There are law cases, there are legal cases where the search histories have been used to reinforce prosecution. So it does happen.
I know the police have. I've been involved in cases, Kim, and I'm saying this not as a breach of confidentiality, because the client that was involved in this gave me permission years ago, and I've never really shared publicly at all anyway, but he did give me permission, where he was a sex offender. He was in a chat room. He was talking to somebody in Australia, and because of the content on Messenger, and I saw the physical files, in fact, I've still got them, the police were able to literally, and I don't know how they do it, they literally picked up on the language that he was using in those conversations. It was instantly picked up by the Metropolitan Police, and they were able to download, literally as if you're pressing print at the top of your screen, and they downloaded his entire conversations that actually led him to be convicted. You know, so I am aware of the power that it can give, which is why I personally, honestly, avoid computers like the plague. And I do, I really genuinely do. But I do understand that we're walking into a system where the youth are much more in tune with technology than people of my age or older. I'm aware of that. You know, even hearing avatars and how people will work with avatars, it appeals to different, everybody's unique and everybody's different. Yeah. Me personally, what I'm hearing from you, which is a little bit scary, so I'm being really honest with you. When we put this out, and we put this out where other therapists are going to see it, they are suddenly going to be inundated. And this is what I was thinking about when I was hearing you, Kim. They're going to be inundated at thinking in their own head, how do I cover the confidentiality boundaries based on those IP addresses being given away? So how do we protect ourselves? How do we protect the client's information, Kim?
Go and work with an organisation that doesn't contract with any third parties whatsoever. Use as few systems as possible to do everything. If you are not transmitting, if you're not copy and pasting a Zoom link to an email and then sending that 3 times, let alone transferring notes, so condense where you can. You use software that takes care as much of your process as possible. Connected services are safer. Nothing is infallible. Nothing is a 1,000,000% protected, but services that are connected are safer. So use as few as possible. Use an organization that has no contract, doesn't work with third parties whatsoever. Use a UK-based company. Do simple things. Change the password on your router regularly. Use a VPN if you feel so inclined. It does offer you some more protection. And think about, I would urge everyone to also be inspired by the possibility that technology presents as well. It is a different way of working. you offer a lot of potential, a lot of availability, a lot of visibility that you would not normally have in order to be able to treat people, in order to be able to meet people who are looking for you. And technology does all of those things wonderfully. Don't publish mobile telephone numbers. Save yourself from the spam and the scams. Don't publish and use general Gmail addresses. Use your own domain email address. If you are taking appointments online, use a booking service. Think about walking a mile in your client's shoes. I'm sitting in front of Google and it's 11 o'clock at night and I've decided to take the step. I really want to look for someone who can help me. Am I left in a position where I've got 3 telephone numbers that I'm going to ring and leave a message and maybe one of them will get back to me? Out of offices. Your out of office might be great if someone emails you by mistake, emails you at your request. But if someone's emailing you with an inquiry, they're probably emailing 2 or 3 others as well. Receiving all of those out of office addresses is a very different experience than just a web page. Just being able to say, take your appointment here and we'll have a 15-minute chat and see if we get on. And the appointment's booked.
This is your passion, isn't it, Kim?
Oh, I can't begin to tell you.
You are. You are.
I see it all the time. The demand for your services are going up and up and up and up and up. And to see people struggling to not really know where to start, and then to take that step to, get straight into marketing and thinking about, Facebook ads and things. People fundamentally will use Google. They will use keywords that you are automatically going to write. You are the people in the universe that do not need a marketing strategy. If you are a trauma-based therapist specializing in XYZ, just type that. And someone is going to find you. Give them a way to book with you really easily. Don't give them a phone number to ring, because you're compromising your own privacy and you're just leaving them with question marks. Connect quickly and easily. They won't move on. You'll get a great client. And as is happening with you, right, that is then all over the world. I really want to see that happen. I really do.
Yeah. And I really, really do hear that. I personally think, and I'm aware we've gone over 6 o'clock, which is absolutely fine at the moment. I just want to bring in a little bit of a boundary there. What I think we ought to do, a follow-up conversation where you actually demonstrate, because I hear what you're saying. I know what I'm like, Kim. I'm very well aware. I hear what you're saying. I understand it. Yes, but I'm quite a visual person. It'd be great to have a third, like a presentation for you to actually show how your organization works and the information, because obviously this is, I'm going to be very honest, it's a great opportunity to be able to direct people to an organisation that does feel so passionately, because for me, that's what attracts me to people, especially in relation to care of clients. So I'm loving your passion and your appreciation of the dynamics. Secondly, I guarantee that there's a hell of a lot of therapists like me out there that literally do not have a clue. And like I said, I'm quite happy and comfortable to leave it. I've got enough work on my plate. But I really appreciate your dynamic and what you're bringing to the table. And I think a third conversation later on, but more of a demonstration as to how your company implements what you do, because I think that would be a great way of honouring what you're giving me right now and what you're giving David and what you're giving everybody else.
I'd really love to open a next session with some questions. So let's get back together with some real questions from your members, exactly as you asked me, okay, what should I be doing? I I like paper and pen. It's absolutely fine. Paper and pen is absolutely fine. There are some other things that you can do to protect yourself, but there are three elements that we break down, right? One is security and safety, and there's privacy in that as well. They're very different things. The other is efficiency, because if you do, I mean, imagine taking your banking back manually now. I mean, how much time? You'd be half a day to the bank every month to go and pay your bills, and we've let go of all of that. If you translate an entire paper and pen practice to an entire digital one, we have seen commonly in that extreme change 1 hour a day. And, you know, that can make a lot of difference. What could you do? You could go on more training. What could you do with that? So there's safety, security, there's definitely efficiency, but the other is visibility. A therapist should not have to go and join a marketplace, get paid a third of their rate of salary, while this notion of security and quality is driven by a US-based company that is then selling the data. That's what's happening. They are walking into this space, which is, they're setting the tone that is making a client feel, you know, this is where my quality is, this is where my safety and security is. So a therapist is paid less and treated less? No. Absolutely not.
They have enough of that already, and that's another one for another conversation down the line.
I'll sit back down.
Kim, it's an absolute pleasure. You're an eye-opener in things that I don't understand, avoid like the plague, know what I'm like, but I'm completely comfortable and appreciative that there's a lot of need for mental health services and being available in a digital way. You know, it's like I said, it's reached me across the world, but I also know me, and not knowing what you're sharing, it's honestly scary. But I need to wrap this up. I'm really, really conscious of that, because I know something's going to happen, and it ought to have happened 8 minutes ago.
Yes,
so I'm running away. Yes, exactly. So we're going to wrap this up. But I think, David, I'm going to ask you to follow up and organise another situation where we can get together and really demonstrate, a live demonstration as to how this actually works. Because honestly, it's just mind-boggling to me.
The whole arena of protecting therapeutic conversations, connections, is vital as the world moves forward in the digital age. And the therapeutic arena has always been on the back foot of protection when it comes to the health sector. We, as a mental health arena, have already heard over the last 2 years how important the mental health sector is in the wider health conversation. But if we're not in that conversation on the digital foot, we are going to be left behind again, and our clients are going to be taken advantage of again and again and again. And this is why APA is so clear. We have to know what this arena is, rather than being herded into it without knowing. We can make the decisions ourselves as professionals as to who we work with, but please know that because something is free, if it's free to you, that company is making money somewhere else. And if you do not know how they are making their money, the chances are they're making it off of you. So please, please, please be mindful that APA is here to protect you, your business, and your clients. So please, if you have gained anything from this conversation, in the link and the description of this episode, there will be a CPD questionnaire link. You can get CPD benefit from this conversation. Just fill out that questionnaire and validate what it is that you've gained and get that. But for now, I want to say a massive thank you for Siobhan for being so open about her awareness around technology and what that implications are. But for Kim, amazing amount of information today. So huge thank you for you. And I really do look forward to kind of sharing more with you in the near future.
Let's do as much of this as is needed. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
And we will see you guys at another episode very, very soon. For now, take care.